Howdy. Well, in part 3 here, we're gonna try to button it up. This time, we're gonna try pressing the lapels, cleaned up a little bit, and touch it up and whatnot like that. I tried to use a little BC cleaner degreaser on this thing, like this white cap is yellow, is a little bit yellower than that. I got it a little bit better. Still not quite where I would like it, but it's a little cleaner. Got some dirt out of that black cap there. It's got more of a satiny sheen to it now. And there's little nicks like right there on the end here. Here, and here, little places like that where I am going to use some, well, it's like medium walnut Danish oil on Q-tips and see if I can touch that up a little bit. And I took the butt plate off, and I tried to use lens, I got a bottle of lens cleaner here, like they have just the same stuff they put on those wipes in a spray bottle we found at Walmart. To clean this up, it wouldn't even clean that stuff there. Didn't hardly phase it at all. I don't know why. Even the cleaner degreaser there wouldn't do it. I found you had to start with 1000 grit emery paper and start sanding. It's real smooth there. You'll see in the pictures. It's slowly coming clean. There's deep scratches like this in patches along this edge here, all the way around, where they didn't get that real smooth and polish it down and with up to 2500 grit junk like that, which I am going to do. And I use Q-tips, and the cleaner degreaser worked great for cleaning this up. In the little grooves here, the Q-tips were great. And these little holes right there, Q-tips soaked in this BC cleaner degreaser got all that thick tan color, that dark tan color, almost light brown dirt out of there. You'll see pictures of this big big ring of dirty Q-tips I pulled out of this thing. I just got to see if I got some F21 or Armor all laying around to treat it with, because that is rubber. That's not hard plastic like, say, the old Crossmans or Remington or something like that. That's actually rubber. Real hard rubber, you can hardly bend it. But we'll get that cleaned up. I'll put some of that F21 or whatever I got on this thing, on the edge too. So that basically goes on like that. And that was dingy. You got black dingy stuff all over it, and the little holes there, like I said, I just dark tan to light brown dirt caked in there. So I got all that clean. The edge of that just needs to be cleaned a little more and then buffed up to 2500. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, you got 1, 2, 3 pieces of aluminum alloy barrel shroud, which was powder coated, according to Crossman. So I can't even use aluminum black on there because it's an alloy, and they say it likely won't work on alloys. So anyway, this from here back, however, is blued steel, and you can see this was scratched up and everything, and I started right there testing a spot to see if it was bluing, and it is. So I can take this back out, and I'm only going to use from now on about 1/3 the amount of moly paste I use on this one, and that's almost nothing. I didn't use a lot to start with, but I changed my mind. I'm going to use less lubricant, because I know I complain about that dieseling and everything. One of them I bought, it might have been the Benjamin XL1100, the newer one. This one's XL1100 that's about 7 years older than my newer one. Anyway, and even though I had it in a vise, there's the only wear you really see there is this little ring there, just from being shoved in and out of the stock. So I could easily take a Q-tip and fix that. The spring came out again. Anyway, I'll fix that. So we're going to be painting the barrel shroud, and I got one of you guys on Facebook bought a bunch of seals, and we were sitting there one day figuring out the seals, the size seals for the shroud. There's one on each end. I got to see if it just press fits or unscrews or what. And a bag of screws and stuff. They're even these darn screws for the butt pad there are rusty on the face. So I need to clean those up. I need to get a couple more little steel wire wheels for the Dremel too, so I can get in there and polish and stuff. Some of the other guns I'm working on, I need to polish the edges of the trigger sears and junk like that, the working edges. Besides, it's real easy to polish all the rust off them pieces and then coat them give them a real thin coat of moly paste when I reassemble them so they don't rust again, or at least for a while. Plus they'll grease them up where they'll have a little less trigger pull in theory. So anyway, I also know that the 1000 grit sandpaper here, I was cutting pieces of this foam that came with various rifles and scopes and junk like that they send in the mail the way they have to pack it and everything. That makes a great sanding block. You need it to stay flat and maybe go around the edges of something. That's perfect for that. And I got some of the harder foam ones I cut in various sizes for sanding blocks. So that's another thing that's good. Besides, some places just use the butt of your hand or your thumb in some narrower spots or near edges. It's really not that hard. You just got to be careful you don't press too hard to where you leave little impressions and stuff. You're just sanding the surface. That's it. When it comes to stocks and such as that. And boy, that doggone finish on that old 760 sprayed on thick. It's some sort of polymerized varnish or something, because it leaves a hard layer that actually some places actually flaked a little bit. You can see it. Hard as nails though. It just dries hard on the surface. I think that's what gives it that sort of murky, milky discoloration. Well, it's not discoloration, you just can't see through it real clear like you would with a good Minwax oil finish, let's say, with true oil on that. It tones the wood and colors the wood and fills in the grain and stuff, but shows tremendous grain detail compared to this commercial junk that they're using. But we'll get to that. Anywho, we are going to start pressing the lapels on this thing, and then I'll tinker with the trigger a little more. Still not quite satisfied with that. But without further ado, let's hit it. Okay, and here we have removed the butt plate with the little white spacer and a couple of screws. You can see a code sticker for something on the butt stock there. So we'll preserve that. And here I tried to use 400 grit wetback paper, the emery, to clean the dirt out of the vertical scratches going against the grain on that plastic plate there, which wasn't working real well. So I used a brass brush and a lot of Q-tips and a cleaner degreaser to clean that butt plate there, the rubber butt plate. That came out really good. And here's the little brass brushes I used.
Get it from Harbor Freight for a few bucks for 3 of them. And here's what it looks like after I cleaned it up inside and out. And here I've gone from 400 to 2500 grit on the edge to clean, smooth, and buff up the edge of that white spacer thing there, so it looks real nice when I go to coat it. I'll use F1 or something on it. And here I got both pieces wrapped up with a blue paper towel and taped up to put it away to keep it clean and from getting scratched again. And here's where I finally got, you can see the Torx bit thingy in the end of the barrel sleeve holder that goes on the end. And here's the bit I used, but it actually fit the hex on the base there, as you can see. I didn't have a Torx thing big enough to fit, but it fit the base, so that was close enough. And just gently unscrew it. You can see the baffle holes in the part here that on the end that holds it in. You see the dirty funk on the threads on the end of the barrel and the barrel itself, since the hollow space here is the suppressor, the hollow space between the barrel and the inside there. And here's the 3 pieces of the sleeve, as they call it, removed from the barrel, which is electron beam welded into the breech. And let's see, I think I got a closer picture here somewhere where you can see that electron beam weld right there. Overall, it doesn't look bad, but that barrel is dirty. We'll come back to that. And here's the Pittsburgh steel pick I used. I got a 4-piece set I got from Harbor Freight, and a penny that shows the size of the 2 seals there for the sleeve and the end and front parts. And again, here you can see the baffle holes that the threads don't cover, so that the inner part of the sleeve is covering the barrel is the entire length of that is your suppressor. The 3 pieces here cleaned up on the outside with medium lacquer thinner. Then I got to thinking the inside of that thing must be filthy because nobody takes these things apart to clean them. And there's the 3-piece cleaning rod I used to clean the inside, and you can see the 2 cotton balls I wetted well with medium lacquer thinner and pushed them through the end of the bore from one end to the other. Look at all the crud that came out of there. So that thing is really nice and clean inside and out. I don't know how the powder coating turns bronze though, because the parts of the powder coating on the inside are perfectly fine and black and shiny and hard as a rock, you know. And here's some coat hangers I bent in half from one end to the other, then made hooks out of them. And after I painted them, I masked off the powder coated inner parts, just wanting to paint the outside that discolored with black, high gloss black Rust-Oleum. And after a few hours, maybe 3 hours of drying, here's what they look like at that point. They look a little better now, but even after 3 hours of drying time, they were looking pretty good. Had the room at like 69, 70 degrees, so it would dry a little slower than if it was hot and muggy, like, you know. And here they are unmasked. I always have dark surfaces to work on where I got to use a white piece of paper for contrast, but ooh, you can see the reflections in it. Those aren't nicks or whatever, those are actually fun. Here is where I had to take 3 long twist ties, one end stuck through the box end of the other, and then folded over and taped and wrapped around that little skinny handle part of a paint stirrer. And I taped a loop on, kinked it over on the end, taped it up like a loop, and pull it through. So now I got something to use to hang it from when I paint it. And here I used some clear packing tape over that code number on the buttstock there to preserve it from getting any more further moisture damage. It was looking pretty good already, but now it'll be better. And here's the medium walnut Danish oil I used to touch up the little scratches and spots on this thing. These 2 here were a little stubborn. I got them pretty decent, but it's kind of hard. And these little spots here, like somebody dripped something on it that took the finish off, but it sealed the wood, even if when I sanded it. This scratcher without the flash looks like it matches a lot closer than it did with the flash on, so I actually touched that one up one more time after I took this. And here it is. I got the touch up as best I can, wiped off and letting it dry till tomorrow or the next day. And here is the barrel with the crud and the threads and everything. And I use the brass brush here to clean the threads. They're excellent for cleaning threads and stuff like that. You start to see the crown on the barrel here too. A little blurry here, but you can see it's got a nice crown in that barrel. Really nice. And here's what I used to clean the barrel with, basically. Those patches are the right size for the 22 Jag to clean the 25 caliber bore too, by the way. Fits good and snug. Looks clean now, doesn't it? And that's what the patches look like after I got done cleaning them. Just the 4 patches there. I haven't cleaned the breech end and the crown end. You know, where the barrel goes in the end of the breech block. Here's a couple shots of it. Here's what it looks like with the flash. It looks rusty, and it's not. That's just the color of the flash. Here's a couple of shots with no flash and natural sunlight. Party, ain't it? Screw a suppressor on the end there. It actually looked kind of cool. And here's where I took it back apart again to get take out about half of that moly paste lubricant. And including inside that the gas cartridge cup spacer holder thing, whatever the hell you call it. Had to clean it off there. I left a little bit on the end of that strut cartridge thing though. And I used those big 3-inch patches on that cleaning rod there. As you can see, it's clean now. I cleaned it by pushing it back and forth all the way to the end of the piston and towards that elbow in that arm there, sticking out of that slot. You can see there how quick that stuff gets dirty. It's like a gray, it looks like the color of platinum gray primer. And here I used the brass brush to clean all the thread sealing tape and junk that was all burnt brown and nasty out of those threads there, and clean it all inside and out. Got that nice and clean so I can put everything back together. And here's what's left of the thread sealing tape that was in the end beyond the threads. And here we are putting it all back together. Got the strut cartridge inside that spacer cup holder thing, whatever the heck you call it. And you got to get those 2 holes lined up. And the preload is actually only about 3/32 of an inch. So you can see where the 2 holes don't quite line up there. And I used a plastic twist tie from some electronics cables to pull the upper sear all the way up into the mechanism and tie it up there so it gets out of the way. So you can put that thing down in the slot and slide it forward and use a driver bit in there to keep the tang and the holes all lined up. I used 2 more driver bits stuck in the end of the screwdriver between them thusly to righty-tighty or lefty-loosey. And here I got to screw that studded spacer thing back in, because the hole in the top there is where the rear stock bolt goes in. And here the black Rust-Oleum enamel that was giving me such a pain in the butt. Okay, so after taking out that right angled spring where the one end sticks up over this adjusting screw here, and the little pin down in there that holds it, safety still works. Safety off. It feels like it's maybe about 2 pounds lighter, 1.5 pounds. It's a little lighter. See? Safety still works. I'm just waiting for the C-clips that go right here and this safety spring that goes right there. So there you go.
quickie little free trigger fix. Now I still need to work with the adjuster here. You have to have it pumped up to shoot and everything before you can really get in there and monkey around with that. But we will get to that when we get it all back together. And boy, look at that barrel. That gets filthy with it being inside that sleeve, because the like I showed you, the part on the end has baffle holes cut equidistant around it. So when it screws all the way on, those baffle holes are in front of the end of the barrel there. And it uses that whole empty space as a suppressor. And that barrel got filthy, so I cleaned it up and cleaned the inside of the sleeve, and well, you saw how dirty that got. Now we got the trigger all set. So that once I do the work with the adjuster here to adjust the length of pull from between stages, have a short first stage, then that should be fine.
And here you are where I used the target backstop to spray against, so I could keep that, well, I was spraying the sleeve, so I keep it in a house where it's warmer and all that, thinking it would work better, and initially it did. And here it is, hanging up to dry. For several minutes it was looking really good, and the paint flowed out real nice. It's looking smooth as glass. I'm thinking, oh good, I finally got it. Sometimes paint and metal can be cruel taskmasters. Dang it. Anyway, here's where I rubbed Rem oil on the stock. Not dripping wet, just enough to where it has that wet look, shine to it, and let it sit for a day or two and let the oil soak into the wood. That's why it looks so shiny here, and it shows the grain real nice, and the color is improved because it's reflecting more light. That way you see more grain structure. Actually, it wouldn't be bad if it stayed that shiny. That's kind of nice to me. And here it is the next afternoon after I rubbed the excess oil off and letting it dry. It still looks pretty good, more like oiled furniture. Just got that kind of satiny sheen to it. And here is the hole. I pulled the pin and C-clip out of it to actually remove the trigger itself from the mechanism. And the pin and the C-clip I pulled out, stuck to a piece of masking tape so it wouldn't go flying off someplace. And this is the V-shaped spring on that small pin there down the center that pushes against that bigger pin that you put the RC bushing on when you take those springs out. And the little pin in the center and that V-shaped spring you pull out and leave out. The small adjuster screw I left in, and the bigger bushing pin there has to go back in. That's like a stop too for the other. It's got a flat U-shaped spring there. And here's showing what happened when the paint dried. It crazed like spraying lacquer over enamel, and it was just enamel over 2 other coats of enamel I'd sanded. Wiped it with a dry cloth and everything, and I don't know what the hell happened there. But anyway, here's putting a little C-clip on it, holds that cocking safety arm in place. And here it is properly in place in a little groove. And the tools I used to put this back together with, and there's the replacement safety spring in place. This is a smaller, longer, firmer spring than the one that came with the gun some 7 years ago. They've upgraded it since. Now here's the little roller bushing going on that pin up near the elbow end in the middle where it rolls into stock to make the thing work a tad easier. When you're cocking it, that thing goes back and forth with the piston. And here's that little U-shaped guide that goes in that little slot right in front of the elbow joint there that I'm pointing at. And putting the right side front screw back in to hold the action in. Backed off for a little gratuitous shine shot. I think it looked cool with a stripper on it. And the left side screw going in. And you see a nice metal and wood sheen there. That is pretty. And here we are putting the rear stock screw in, and that goes in the back of the trigger guard. And into that threaded stud thing that holds the trigger mechanism into the action, and the cup for that strut. And here it is properly in place, tightened down and ready to go. And the two sleeve ends that hold the sleeve in place with their new seals. Seal pick I use to pull them up and over and get them in position in those little grooves there. And here it is pointing at where the seals go when they're properly installed. They fit tight to push that sleeve over them things too. I was surprised there. And I had to wipe the seal area down with some 30 weight silicone lube to put it together here, and I had to push hard in. Still shiny though. And screw this thing in with the Torx bit with that seal on it to hold the whole mess together. I decided against using the driver drill, but I needed that longer Torx bit and a pair of Robo Grip pliers that are laying there to put it back together. And there it is, back in one piece again. And here I put the cleaned up butt plate in that white plate I repolished the edges of. They did it with like a coarse 80 grit, and I had to take it up to 2500 to get that satiny sheen out and get it nice and white again. But it's all back together and ready to rock and roll now.
There was scratches, a big long, I wouldn't say a scratch, but where the bluing was rubbed off from the action vibrating in the stock with that back and forth recoil these things have, like a kind of like a boxer's jab. So anyway, broke out the quart of perma blue there, cotton balls and bits of paper, blue paper towel and everything, and used a trusty little 3-ounce cup of water there to use the degreaser. Oh, I used the degreaser on the breech block here too. This nitro piston logo there had this, like, dirt mixed with rust or something, and grody all over that and blocking part of the logo. So nice and shiny, got a blue sheen to it now, as you can see, where I took degreaser and cleaned it pretty serious with plain common Q-tip. I got a whole bunch of them down here, and wipes and cups and whatever for doing various things like this, and got it cleaned up pretty good. And this was scratched around here and down there and over here and everything. Now right there it wouldn't take for some reason. I don't know why, because I used degreaser on all those parts and wiped that off and then wetted a cotton ball and squeezed out the excess and rubbed it all down real good, dried it off again. And then I noticed with the perma blue, you wet the Q-tip in the perma blue and you go to wipe it on, you can't just go like that. That's no good. That will not work. One, well, damn, I cleaned it. Why is this stuff going on? And okay, rub on, rub off, got it. So I started going like a circular swirling motion as I moved forward, and it went right in and blacked up real nice, including the cap back here where it was all worn and stuff like that. What I never liked is you got these two holes here, like I showed you in the videos, where you got to stick driver bits in there and use a screwdriver to crank it around. Imagine they got a disc with a couple of pins on it they use for that. You know how companies are. Anyway, so I wetted another cotton ball, wiped it down with water to get the chemical off and stop the process once it was to my liking, and then rubbed it down with a piece of paper, doubled over paper towel, sprayed with some Rem oil there, and look at that. That worked really easy. Oh, and I also missed a spot right there, but I went around the edges here and everything and re-blued that studded spacer block thingy that holds the trigger in. But the bolt, the rear stock bolt that goes through the back of the trigger goes in that hole right there. Okay. And I lighten the trigger pull, as I showed before. So that's all ready. That'd be neat if I could buy the paint in a can and thin it myself and just use like a little 1 or 2 ounce jar or something with my airbrush compressor and just use my Badger to paint stuff like that. I'd rather use lacquer. I love lacquer. Lacquer flows out and starts drying from the outside in. And I rub the barrel again with oil and look at that. And after brushing out the threads up here, let me zoom in on that, with a brass brush. Come on. Well, they look good anyway. I can't get the stupid thing to focus. But, that's just looking really nice. Looking way better than it did before. A lot of grody stuff all over the stock and the the metal parts here. That's why it's looking. I got a more steely blue sheen to it. Is I cleaned the crap off it. There's some kind of black grody stuff. Like somebody had really dirty hands and it never cleaned the thing and kept it in the back of a truck or I don't know what. But she's oh man, the 3 parts of the barrel shroud even was just bleached out bronze. But anywho, speaking of the stock, that's looking really nice. Trying to move around a little bit here so it'll kind of show some of that excuse me, oiled furniture sheen. See that? Looking really good. There it is. We got it all back together. Detail cleaned the rubber butt plate so it looks like brand new. The edge of this white cap thing here looked like they used 80 or 100, maybe 80 grit coarse to hurry up and shape it and just slapped it on there. All the dirt got in them little sanding grooves. So I had to take it all the way up to 2500 grit to buff, to get that edge real smooth and get a satiny sheen to it, nice and a soft sheen and nice and smooth and white like it's supposed to be. Now this is the sleeve where the paint crinkled and everything. So I have to wait till maybe the middle of next week at the latest before I get the new one in, and I'll just swap the new powder coated one in for this one here. But it's together for now, just to test it and stuff like that. But anyway, there it is. All back together, and we'll see how the trigger works. One on my finger. Try the Gamma 15.42s in there. Shoot it at the backstop across the room there and see what happens. Nice double click. Feels nice and firm. I took out about 50% of that moly lube at least. Did some mop up in there. Changed my mind about Boy, those things fit really tight in this breech here. Level, but it goes in nice and snug. Okay, may fortune favor the foolish. It's not a hair trigger. Oh, I gotta do this again. Thank you, Jesus. Hear how good that sounds, buddy? Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm kind of shaky from working on this thing. I can't get the pellet. Can't push the stupid pellet in. There we go. These things are like those H&N silver points. You got to push them in really straight or they won't go in. Okay, now let's see if we can get a more accurate feel on that trigger pull. There's virtually no first stage pull left. Second stage, 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 or so before it engages. But boy, is that thing accurate! I just put one hole next to another. I was off on that second shot. The first one was bam, put one hole right next to another hole. Ooh-gah. But it's kind of funny. These Gamble pellets are louder than the Sig Sauer alloy crux there. Just for the head, let's try one of those. Get a few shots in here before I finish part 3, and then the part 4 will just be an additional chrono test. I got 3 pellets I want to test in this thing. Doesn't hurt to give it a bit of a break in. So basically I want to test the Gamma Hunters here, the Hornets, and the Field Target Trophy. Even this Sig Sauer crux fits in there, that breech real nice. Not too loose, not too tight. Hole in a hole. And these things ain't got no sights on them. I'm just aiming like you would, well, like we were taught with the old 12 gauge singles and stuff when we were kids, you know. The Sig Sauer crux is about as loud as the Gamma. And I cleaned out the ports in this part here that's in front of where the threads on to the end of the barrel there, down to the threads are about there. The ports are actually right about right there where my thumbnail is, right below that little shoulder where the seal goes. There you are, Ken. Working fine, buddy. And I gotta rub it down with some oil and everything. To make sure it's all nice and clean before I bag it up. And I got a ton of those air pillow thingies to put in the box, and a nice fresh roll of heavy brown paper to wrap it in. So they won't be the wiser. If she wants to think it's airsoft, we say yes. So that's it for reassembling it. I hope you all got something out of it. Boy, those little E-clips and little safety spring and little bric-a-brac, a good 3 or 4 finger pinch of small parts drive me nuts when you get rheumatoid arthritis, carpal tunnel, and Bell's palsy on one side of your face and wearing trifocals besides. Gee, this is gangs of fun. I like doing the work. It's just that parts of me need to be fixed, and they'd rather sell me drugs instead. I'm sure some of you other people are well aware of that. Now I know why my grandmother talked like that. So, as always, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We'll see you again.